Hello, and welcome to the Amateur Skeptics Podcast, Podcast 69. I'm your host, Brian Heinesser. Joining me this evening, Kimberly, Sean, and Ian. Say hello, folks.
Hello, folks.
We'll see how that works.
Actually, you guys can't follow directions. You said hello, folks.
Oh, jeez. How is everybody doing?
Doing great.
All right.
Fun week, actually. Got my backyard Halloween display all set up. So drive by and see it at night. It looks pretty cool.
Okay.
Excellent. Did you add something to it this year?
Added all sorts of things. I picked up these new lights, blood dripping lights. They're just like, basically they're the icicle lights that they've been selling for Christmas for a couple years now.
Right.
Except
like
they're
snow
red.
falling. Right. And they have a real cool effect where I put them because I have like some banners and skulls around it. And so when the ones light up, they light up skulls right next to them. And they're actually cool looking.
Okay.
All right.
Very cool.
Have to swing by and see that. It's a long drive, of course.
Yeah. So, anything else going on?
Well, my other podcast that I do myself with my partner, I thought I lost 2 files from like a 3-hour conversation about the Avengers yesterday. I actually deleted the files, but I was able to recover them thanks to a utility. So I gave myself a bad night's sleep, but a good morning.
We've had issues where we've lost podcasts. Did we lose a whole podcast or just half of one?
I think half of them.
Yeah, we had to do some re-recording, I remember. So it happens to every podcaster. In fact, you're not officially a podcaster until you've lost an episode.
Well, then we were officially a podcaster on the first one because somehow the MP3 Skype recorder didn't actually record the first podcast.
There you go. See, that happens all the time, too. Are you actually recording? So, yeah. Kimberly, what's up with you?
What is up with me? I did the data serve yesterday, I guess it was,
Data
on
serve?
Sunday, and I actually went into a church. I did not burn up, and I helped decorate bags and drew up some birthday cards for Project Angel Heart, and I did that over at the Waterstone Church as this citywide program they had for volunteers.
Oh.
And so I did that as part of the Free Thought Exchange, so that was a lot of fun.
Oh, that's cool. Well, yesterday was also Blasphemy Day.
I didn't find out about that until afterwards. I was a little bit I didn't celebrate it the way I really do.
Well, I said something crude about Jesus on Facebook.
There you go.
Kimberly, that Project Angel Heart, you realize that that's a Mickey Robert De Niro movie.
No, I did not know that.
Turns out.
There's a movie called Project Angel Heart?
No, but Angel Heart is.
Oh, okay.
Lisa Bonet is in it, too. That was like her one role after Cosby.
All right.
All right. Hey, announcements?
Announcements. All right. We've got lots of stuff coming up for October. We'll start off with the Boulder Atheists doing the history of marriage in their atheist classroom on Wednesday, October 3rd. On Saturday the 6th, it's not actually a CoCore event, but they are getting people to go to the We Are Women March. I went last year. It was really good. I highly recommend people go. On Tuesday, October 9th, Cafe Psi 1 is doing a program on finding Sister Earth. And then I thought this was interesting I wanted to let people know about. There's a group called the Denver Ghost Hunters who are all into the paranormal and woo stuff. And they are doing a paranormal convention on Saturday, October 3rd called the Spirits of Victor. On Sunday, October 14th, there's the big Christians Unpacking Atheism event at a church with Lee Strobel and William Lane Craig. Or, if that's not your thing, at the Humanists of Colorado the same evening, we're going to be talking about some of the ballot initiatives that are going to be going on for Colorado, including the legalization of marijuana. And we're going to have speakers from both sides of the issues come and give a presentation and then do a Q&A.
All right.
On Wednesday, October 17th, if you've got a little bit of pocket change sitting around, there's apparently going to be a fundraising reception with Richard Dawkins himself. Minimum contribution is $500. I am open to people sponsoring me to go. You pay, I'll go. If that's what you want to do, just give me a call.
That sucks that he would do that. He's coming to town for a limited amount of time and $25, okay. 500? Who's
You know what?
he
He's
recruiting?
not going to be eating alone that night. He'll be fine.
No, I know he won't. It's out of my. I can't do it. So
I can't. And hopefully there will be other Richard Dawkins events in town. Apparently he's going to be in for a few days. That's
Okay.
the only one I've seen announced at this moment.
well, I hope
Hopefully
there's
maybe
another.
next time we'll have more stuff, although there won't be much time to tell you about it. But if you're in Colorado, he's going to be down in the spring for something or another. Be on the lookout. Dawkins coming in. Thursday, October 18th at the Denver Museum of Nature and Science, the Science Lounge is doing Superheroes Assemble. And the same night, The Free Thought Exchange is taking their second trip to the Arvada Church. They've invited us back to continue the conversation. The first one was really good, so I think that'll be great. On a more reasonable cost thing, I wanted to let you know, Brian, I thought you might really like this. That same Denver Ghost Hunters group is doing a Ghost Hunting 101 class.
Oh, wow.
It's $15 for adults. It's open. It might be some really fun to just kind of sit in the back and either giggle or just see where they're going with it.
Yeah, I could do that. Yeah, I'll look into that because that would be fun.
We might need to put something together. So.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. On the Ian's talked about it.
Mine, once
Love
more.
to hear again about Mile High Con.
Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, October 19th, 20th, and 21st is Mile High Con. I will be there. They're getting the schedule out this weekend, so I'll know what panels I'm on. I do know I'm doing one panel with my son about kids who have been growing up doing the convention thing, which will be fun. I don't know what other panels I'm doing as of yet. But it's always fun. Meet the local authors. If you're into, sci-fi and fantasy and, genre fiction in general, it's a perfect place to go.
All right. And then Wednesday the 24th, Mikey Weinstein is going to be speaking on religion in the military. He's an extraordinarily powerful speaker. It's down in Colorado Springs, but if you've never seen him speak, I would totally recommend it. I'm going to try to get down there myself, but I don't know.
Yeah, I want to go there too.
And then finally, on Saturday, November 3rd, COCOR is presenting Parenting Beyond Belief, Raising Kids Without Religion, which sounds like an interesting one too. And that's your announcements for today.
Yeah. Hey, and of course, you can head on over and vote for Ian. He has a published story, which I started reading. But Ian, their site looks like something from 1995.
Yeah, it's not the most updated of sites, but they are, easing that. Basically, the easing itself doesn't make them any money. They have print books they sell, and that's where they make their money from. So I don't think they focus too much on keeping their site looking the most updated.
Well, I'm gonna say that it's not an excuse in this day and age to have a website that looks like that.
I'll give Jay a hard time about when I see him at Mile High Con.
Yeah, because here's the thing: is that it would not take much to make that look nicer. I mean, some tables would make that look nicer. Some simple HTML could really help this gentleman out.
He probably could use a volunteer or two.
Yeah, maybe.
So I'll bring that up to Jay when I see him at Mile High Con. He'll be
right
there. So, but yeah, check out my story, vote for it, enjoy it. There's some decent fiction on there, and it's free, so you don't have any excuse not to check it out.
All right. Okay,
all right.
so
well, I just
go
wanted
ahead.
to, before we got into our main topic tonight, a friend of mine who listens to the podcast sent me this article, and so I included it in the notes. It's called "Why Some of Us Refuse to Face Facts." Yes, birthers, that includes you. They kind of go ahead and skewer a couple of the big things that no matter how much information seems to be put out there about the birth certificate, about global warming or climate change, I should say, and
they mentioned vaccines here.
Right, the vaccines thing too. Yeah, no matter how much evidence people get, they just don't change their mind. And it talks about some of the psychology behind that, and how it's basically the way our minds work when we have something that we're trying to basically fit. When we find something that conforms to what we already believe in, it forms a very strong bond in our brain. And it's really very hard to get rid of it.
Well, humans in general are stubborn assholes. We know this.
Yeah, well, that would have been an even shorter article.
Yeah, the birther issue is interesting. And it wouldn't be an issue at all if we trusted our government, because we can pretty much be sure that he was vetted somewhere. But it's too easy to say, well, they had an agenda, or they or this or that. But he was vetted.
Yeah.
It's just like...
Well, and like they said in here, it's just that the people who don't like him, they want to invalidate him as the candidate, basically just can't, they don't have any good argument for it. They don't have anything they can really hold on to. So this seems like something they can really hold on to, and they're just unwilling to give it up because it fits that hole so well.
I bowl with a birther. And, I love the guy. I love arguing with the guy. We get along really good, except for we don't agree, but it's always the same arguments. Well, he did first it was, the birth certificate, which is pretty much debunked. They still don't accept it, but let's face it, all they can say is, well, it was forged. Great. And then the other one is, well, he's using somebody else's social security number, which is totally bunk. Somebody filed, I forget which state it was, but they filed a lawsuit with the state against him.
Well, actually, it's in here about Arizona doing it. And if I can, I'll just read a quick paragraph that I think pretty much sums up the article.
Great.
It says, you can look at it from the point of view of the people that first raised the question. They want something that would invalidate the candidate, said Colleen Siffert, Arthur F. Thurnow, professor of psychology at the University of Michigan and one of the report's authors. So if it were true, they say it would be so great because it would solve this problem for them. But it's not really true. So they keep clinging to it because they don't have an alternative that is equally damning or equally would change the playing field. And she kind of goes over the same kind of stuff again for climate change, vaccines, but really anything, where people really stick to a belief despite evidence. It's because it's really serving something for them.
Yeah.
Well, they think they have evidence. I mean, they really have found this minutia that they hold on to.
The problem is that their evidence is as easily fabricated as his allegedly forged birth certificate.
Well, and there you go. That's part of it.
So it's not really evidence.
Yeah. It's silly.
Just wanted to include it in there and let our listeners know anytime you see an article that you think touches on something we've talked about or you're interested in, send it to us. We'll be more than happy to include it.
Yep.
Is this next one part of our...
I'm not sure. I'm trying. The Stonewall riots. Who put that in?
Yep.
Okay. All right. So we're going to let Mac take it away here. Mac, tell us what are we going to be talking about here?
First of all, Kimberly, let me ask you, what do you know about the Stonewall riots?
What do I know? I know that they happened in 1969. They basically followed a lot of back in the day. The police would routinely raid gay clubs and basically arrest everybody in there. Right. And it happened all the time, and it was obviously really damning to your career, your family, whatever, because everybody was so closeted at that point. Well, they went into the Stonewall, which was a bar in New York. If you ever go to New York, you can actually still say the same place. I don't believe the bar is still open, by the way. They have a commemorative site or something. And one day they came in to do one of these kind of standard riots, and people in this bar just had enough, and they fought back, and it went on for days. It was huge.
Right, and that essentially the anniversary of the Stonewall riots is the anniversary that they started the first gay pride marches on.
That's right.
In Los Angeles, Chicago, and New York. The Stonewall riots, though, basically started to open up gay liberation, and essentially started to make homosexual people start to feel a little bit prouder about standing together and not just hiding from everybody. Clearly I'm not the expert in this, but it does lead to the next article here, which is that we had a lot of homosexual content starting up in films in the 1970s. And just to put out my overall thesis here, my thesis is that pop culture reflects what's going on in society, but by reflecting what's going on in society, it also changes what's going on in society, that it makes things that were not acceptable suddenly much more acceptable.
Okay, well, start out with the first part of your case here. That basically that. So I can definitely see where what we see on TV and in movies reflects society and society's progress.
Okay.
And so, he starts out here, and this article was a lot of fun, actually.
You're talking about the homosexuality's evolving role in the 1970s film?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Because, we're talking about everything you ever wanted to know about sex. We're talking about the Rocky Horror Picture Show. We're talking about cruising. Let's see, what else do they touch upon? Actually, those are the only ones that they mention in the article, but it just kind of went on from there.
Midnight Cowboy, I'm trying to think of other ones that had, because Midnight Cowboy was the interesting one, because that was X-rated just because it had homosexuality in it. And no nudity or anything, and the sex was all off screen. But it got an X rating, and it got Best Picture. It was the first X-rated movie to ever, in fact, right now, the only X-rated picture to ever get Best Picture. But now it's been, I think, re-rated down to R, but... That was, that definitely showed some interesting stuff about society. The fact that got X-rated just for having homosexual references in it.
Right. Now, originally, though, Rocky Horror Picture Show didn't do very well.
No, it didn't do very well,
it's
but it became
movie, but it's supposed to be a bad movie.
But it's an underground cult classic because
It's a brilliantly bad movie with great music in it.
Yes, it is. And, from the very first moment that Tim Curry comes out in that bustier and stockings, he's right there in your face the rest of the movie.
Yeah.
And that was not so much gay content in that case, or as it was transsexual, transgender content.
Yeah.
Well, and remember that, I mean, there's a difference between transsexual and transvestite, because transvestites are generally straight men.
Yeah.
Not always, right? But I think it's a majority of men that dress up in women's clothing are straight men. I'm sorry, what was that, Kimberly?
It's a really high number who do it for the sexual pleasure kind of thing, as opposed to, and again, they're not completely separated entirely, but drag queens are usually doing it for the money or for the for making a statement and stuff like that. It's not so much a sexual thing, but for straight men, the transvestite stuff is usually kind of hitting some kind of a sexual proclivity or need. Not that it changes their orientation, but it's serving that kind of thing in their heads.
And some of what we see as transsexual or transvestite may actually people who are gender confused and are trying to act in the opposite gender to find out how it feels and find out if it's more comfortable.
At Walmart, I worked with a drag queen, and you wouldn't believe it. When he was in, I never saw one of his shows, but I saw some pictures of him. He looked completely different in drag. I saw some videos of him, a whole different personality. It was like he was a whole different person when he was doing his show. And he was straight. He had a wife and a kid, and he got along with them just fine. But it was definitely there was him, and then there was his drag queen personas.
And his drag queen personas probably were different people than him.
Yes,
and he could do different things in those personas.
Right.
Did he have a really good name? Because those are some of the best.
I don't remember his drag queen name. I know he called himself the Shock, but that wasn't drag queen name.
I have one friend whose drag name is Urethra Burns, and another one who is Patty Cakes, and they're hysterical.
That's funny. Urethra Burns, huh?
It's the comedian Izzy Edward?
Eddie Izzard.
Eddie Izzard. There you go. He is he identifies as straight, but dresses up in women's clothing.
And he's hot doing it. I mean, I just adore Eddie Izzard.
Well,
I think he's hysterical.
He's pretty awesome.
But I've seen him in regular clothes and in drag, and he is just somehow sexy as hell in drag. And it's not because I'm a lesbian. He just carries it in a way it's just mind-boggling.
Well, if we're talking drag queens, let's mention Wong Fu.
Sure.
We've got Patrick Swayze and Wesley Snipes in there, who are definitely identified as being male sex symbol actors, or were at that time, and we've got them in women's clothing in that movie, and they carry it off really, really well.
Well, then of course there's The Crying Game. Has everyone seen The Crying Game?
Yep.
No, but I know about it.
But you know the secret of The Crying Game?
And since we hadn't seen him yet in, because he ends up in the Stargate movie and they think he's done a few other things, you don't know, he's not a woman. And it is, he actually makes a fairly hot woman.
Yeah.
I've seen him in Stargate. He makes a fairly hot woman there, too. I'm sorry, but the actor is he could go either way. He's very androgynous, and he looks beautiful in either role. So
that's why he was perfect for the role in The Crying Game.
Well, and we can't not mention RuPaul.
Yeah.
I just recently watched Hairspray, which the original happened to have Divine in it as the mother of the girl.
Right.
And this is the new version where John Travolta takes on that particular role, and I never saw the original, but John Travolta kind of owns that character in that movie.
Okay, but to get back to the point here, because that's great. This is fairly well accepted now. I mean, there's still some people who probably have issues with it.
But it's accepted now because it appeared then, and people became, I'm not going to say desensitized, but they became used to it. It became something familiar to see.
And you think that by putting these things in movies and stuff like that is what did it, or do you think that it was already happening so that they could put it in movies? I think it's
an interchange between the two. I think that something happens and pop culture reflects it, but because pop culture reflects it, more people know about it, and because more people know about it, it becomes more acceptable to the overall herd mentality of society.
Basically, it feeds off itself.
Exactly. It's the observer effect, to use a physics term. Pop culture observes phenomena, and as it observes phenomena, it also changes those phenomena as it reflects them.
All right. So it kind of gets rolling here in the 1970s.
Exactly.
Okay.
And I recently watched the movie House of Numbers with Sam, and in the movie House of Numbers, they talk a lot about. There's a guy in there who was talking about how he visited a bathhouse over a weekend. He came away with like 5 different sexually transmitted diseases. So, one could probably make a case that liberation went too far in the opposite direction, just like sexual liberation in the 60s went too far in the opposite direction, just to...
Well, no, that's an interesting... What is too far?
If you're having to get penicillin for it, probably it went too far. That's my personal feeling.
That's your personal line?
I think that's probably a personal line.
What if I said I didn't think it went far enough?
If you had penicillin for it?
No. What if I say that I didn't think that? But what if I can make
sexual
a case?
Liberation in the 60s or gay liberation in the 70s, you don't think they went far enough?
Well, I can. Maybe I can make a case for it. See, one of the reasons that people were getting these STDs is because we hadn't. We also weren't preaching safe sex at the same time. We should have gone even further and said, "Hey, get out there and do these things, but be safe while you're doing it."
That is a very good point.
And so that they could have gone even further with their explorations.
They could have. All right. So to move on from there.
Yes.
The next link I've got in here is about the TV show Modern Family.
Okay, let me add mine in before you get there, because I know where you're going with this. What's that?
Absolutely hit it.
Okay, because let me say, Modern Family, you're particularly looking at the gay man raising a child.
You've got a stable, happy gay couple who are, they fight like any couple do. They have silly arguments like any couple do. They're a normal couple.
Okay.
And they're on ABC Family TV. Well, not ABC Family, but ABC Straight TV, right there in front of millions of viewers, and I'm pretty sure that not every one of those viewers happen to be homosexuals. So
right.
We've got a lot of straight people watching this gay family and accepting it as normal.
So there are two things that I think that kind of pave the way for what you're talking about. And one of them would be My Two Dads, which those two happen to be heterosexuals, right? But there were two men.
They were heterosexuals, and I believe at the end of the show, one of them went off to get together with an ex-girlfriend.
And maybe even been the mother of the child.
She died.
Oh, she died. Oh, that's right. That's how they got her.
Right.
And they didn't know which was the father, right?
Right.
It's a lame premise, but the idea of two men raising a child, I think, particularly that was 87 to 90. Would not have been a mainstream idea, I don't think.
No,
and the other one,
a mainstream idea.
Right? So I think that might be one that we can point to. The other one is 3 Men and a Baby, where these 3 guys end up with a baby, and I don't know which came first of those two.
Well, even before that was, do you guys remember Soap in the 70s?
Oh, yes,
Billy
of course.
Crystal played a gay character who wound up raising a kid, too.
Yep, there you go.
Not with anybody, though.
He was a gay character. He was a gay character, and in the show, he ended up impregnating a lesbian character, if I recall Soap correctly. But yeah.
What a great show.
Soap was awesome. Yeah.
Oh, man. Crazy.
That's a good point. I hadn't even thought of Soap in years.
Yeah, I hadn't. Yeah, see, so there's a lot of stuff that paved the way for this sitcom to do this in such a way that was nonchalant.
Yep. Even though My Two Dads and 3 Men and a Baby, neither one of those had any homosexual overtones among the characters.
Mm-hmm.
You still do have male caretakers of a baby with no woman sight.
Right, exactly. Yeah, and that's my point there. The other one is 6 Feet Under, where I don't think that those men were raising a child. But there's a but that's 2000s, so maybe not so risque.
Yeah, but
and it's interesting. I mean, I like Modern Family quite a bit, but it doesn't do everything right by a long shot. The article that you put in here kind of talks about some of that controversy of the way they treat a lot of different subjects, and usually they do it with so much humor. I'm not even kind of thinking about the social commentary. But they've got a really interesting plot going on from the end of last season and the beginning of this one, where they're trying to adopt again. When the series starts, they've just done an adoption overseas, and they're trying to do a local adoption, and it all goes south. And
Well, goes south of the
it's
border and then goes south.
well, yeah, in that particular one. But I found it a really, really touching episode. You know, again, as somebody who's had to look into, and I never did it, but looked into adoption as the only way to raise a family. You know, it's really an extraordinarily stressful process, and I thought they did a fairly decent job of kind of showing the frustration involved about
I
how what a challenge it is.
I thought Cam and Mitchell's reactions in there, the characters, were very, very genuinely kind of broken, and I really liked the way they did that.
Yeah. It's also nice to finally have, some gay characters. And I believe actually only Mitchell is played by an actual gay man. I believe Cam, the guy who plays Cam, is straight. But just what a relief to finally have a gay person portraying a gay character, because we never get that.
And I don't really think, I think they come across as more authentically interested in the things that they're interested in rather than caricature. Mm-hmm. As much as, there's a lot of talk about musicals and so on and so forth, they don't come across as caricatured. They come across as, this is something that genuinely interests me. So
now let me ask you this though: do you think that they actually they took some steps to try to what do I want to say? They took some of the stereotypes and misapplied them on purpose, because you have the more effeminate one who is definitely more the caregiver for the child. But yet at the same time, he is the one that likes football and beer, and the more one that would be the more masculine is the one that likes his show tunes and wine.
Right. He's also the one who happened to grow up on a farm in Iowa, I think. He grew up on a farm.
Yeah, something like that.
The redhead?
No, the stocky one is the one who grew up on a farm.
Okay, the stocky one is the one that likes beer and football. The other one is the one that I'm attributing the more he's the man of the household, right? He's the one that's working. But yet he's the one that likes the show tunes.
Well, they both like show tunes.
Well, okay. Who doesn't like a good show tune? I mean, really. Tunes. Yeah, exactly. So, except for my coworker. He says it's not music. He says, I don't like music, but I'm like, I love show tunes. He says, yeah, that's not music. So I sing to him.
You know what you need to expose him to? Cannibal the Music.
Yeah, that is so
like
funny.
That
oh, that. Well, he's probably seen that.
Or Sweeney Todd. That's some show.
All right, so I think that you've made a pretty good narrative here down that line. But now you want to shift gears and you want to talk about the West Wing.
I do want to talk about.
Well, let's talk about the West Wing.
I do want to shift gears.
So,
all right. So who here has seen the West Wing? How much? Basically most of the series. Who here has seen it?
You can't just raise your hands. You actually have to talk.
You're gonna have to chime in on this one.
Okay, I've seen it.
I actually have no excuse, but I've never really watched the episode.
I've seen bits and pieces, but
I have not seen it all the way to the end. I got lost somewhere around season 4 or 5.
Okay.
But it's one that I'm always like, I've got to go back to that. But yet it feels like there's so much there that where do you go back and restart?
Yeah. So, well, I recently had a refresher course. I watched all 7 seasons with my parents.
Oh, you're a masochist.
There's a lot of characters on that show, and it was kind of difficult for my mom to keep track of all the characters.
Yeah, not only that, what time frame did you do this in?
We did this. We basically watched about 2 to 3 episodes an afternoon every Monday.
Yeah, that's a lot to absorb.
Yep. Anyway, now there's a little bit of backstory on West Wing itself. Aaron Sorkin, the guy who created it, first did a movie called The American President. He did tons and tons and tons of research for this movie. And he didn't use it all for The American President, so he's like, well, I've probably got enough here to put together a TV series. He got, one of his advisors at least was Dee Dee Myers, who'd been press secretary during part of the Clinton administration. So he had good advisors on this, people who had been in the process. And I won't say that everything you see on West Wing is 100% accurate, but I think that watching it, the people who did watch the West Wing, and, it stayed on for 7 years, so I'm guessing a few did. I think that the people who watched the West Wing probably pay more attention to the political process and ask more questions about the political process because they watched this show that dealt with it.
Okay, I would love to see evidence for that, because my personal view is I think more people watch The West Wing than ever pay attention to politics.
Yeah.
You watched The West Wing and you got involved in politics.
I don't think that was the reason.
Evidence.
No. I think that.
Are you saying I have causation without correlation?
I think so. I would like to think that you were right, that these people made them excited about the process. And I would say, even if they did,
I'm not going to say everybody, but I think more people who have watched The West Wing sit down and maybe ask the questions. Even if they don't act on those questions, at least they think about what they're seeing when they're watching the political process.
I would like to think you're right, but I don't. And I would think that
Sam made the comment about the current election. Now, she doesn't talk politics, but she was making the comment that the current election between Romney and Obama is playing out like reality TV. And it kind of is.
Seems kind of unreal to me. I can't imagine how stupid that man is. Sorry.
You talking about Romney?
Yeah, I'm talking about Romney.
I don't think he's completely stupid. I think he's only about 47% stupid.
Okay, while we're on this, then let's talk about rolling down windows on a plane, because I think it was a joke. I just think he can't tell a joke.
I think that was probably a joke.
It's hard to tell. He definitely, if it's a joke, he doesn't know how to tell them.
That's what I think.
I mean, when Obama tells a joke, he has a certain thing about him, like, okay, that's a joke. When Romney, if that was a joke, he definitely doesn't know how to make it clear that was a joke.
He may have no comic timing.
But it's beyond that. It's just, he's too much of a straight man. He doesn't know how to actually express emotions.
I have trouble believing that he's stupid.
I think he only expresses about 47% of his emotions.
Yeah.
Where do I keep coming up with this number?
All right, go on.
Anyway.
Before I have to start bitching about Ann Romney. I hate that woman.
But I do think though that I whether I've got evidence for it or not, I know that for my own part, watching this did make me more aware, and it did make me ask the questions.
Yeah. Okay, but did it make you go out and go to your caucus meetings?
No.
No.
It did not make me go out and go to my caucus meetings.
Yeah. And did it go out and make you want to become a get involved and become a precinct member?
No, but Parks and Rec makes me want to go and become a city councilman.
Yeah. The problem is that the actual process, it's fun for a little while, and then it's just tedious. And so I have trouble with the idea that it actually inspired these people to get involved in any way and actually pay attention. And The West Wing is so much more entertaining and intellectual than it seems like our actual political process is.
Well, Brian, don't blame me for that, because I voted for Bartlett. Anyway, the next point I wanted to touch upon is the fact that cell phone videos have basically led to the rise of citizen journalism, and essentially everybody can be a reporter now.
Yeah.
You talking about Romney and his 47%?
That is a big part of it. But I put a link in there that basically I did a YouTube search for cell phone videos, and there's how many different momentous events listed in there, as well as tedious and mundane events, but how many different momentous events that were caught on cell phone video that there was never a reporter to see.
The hanging of Saddam Hussein?
Let's see what's on the list.
That's how we got that video, was off somebody's cell phone.
Yeah. Cell phone video offers a rare glimpse of Sri Lanka's long civil war. Miami Beach Memorial Day shooting, May 30th, 2011, cell phone video. Denver Dark Knight Rises shooting, amateur video shows audience fleeing Aurora Theater. Frog plays cell phone video game. Now, that's quality reporting right there. Actually, that is a funny video. The funniest part is where the frog bites Guy's thumb at the end. If it's the same one I'm thinking.
Mm-hmm. All right, but that's a technological advance, not necessarily a sociological advance. It's definitely sociology advanced because of because now somebody can do something like this.
Technology does drive sociological advance.
Absolutely.
And sometimes it drives sociological, not sociological. The word I'm not looking for is retreat, but sociological regression. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, because we have computers and the internet, we're both more connected to other people and less connected to other people than ever.
Well, we're more connected with people who think like us.
That is true. I have friends among the blog sphere that I love their stuff. I have no idea where they live, but I bump into people at the store and I won't talk to them. So
if you bump into them, you should at least say, excuse me.
Probably. But, usually I'm pushing my cart too fast in the opposite direction to say anything. That fell flat. Totally flat. That was I tell a joke like Romney, apparently.
We could have told you that.
I think you're more of a human being than I think Romney is.
Oh, that's so sweet.
Yeah.
You know, I wanted to
Right.
comment when you were talking about the birthers. I live with one, although he's not a birther, he's a hatcher. He's a bird. Anyway.
I don't think that's quite the same. We might have a different idea of that particular issue.
Yeah, his ideas about it are probably pretty alien to us. Anyway, we talked before about science fiction spurring technological advances, like the communicators on Star Trek evolving into our cell phones.
Yeah, we got some pushback on that, though, didn't we?
We did get some pushback from that. In fact, we got some pushback on that from Dumbass, I believe. But, you know, I think the point is still good that sometimes when we see something in fantastic fiction, we want to know how to have something like that.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. I still think that I mean, because a lot of these people say that they were inspired by different things that they saw.
His point about the Dick Tracy two-way wrist radio and its relationship to the cell phone was a pretty good.
Yeah, okay.
But that's also fantastic fiction.
Hey, don't give him too much credit. I mean, let's not let it go to his head. I mean, here's a guy who hasn't put out a podcast in like a month.
Well, that's because he can't get in on a gas.
Actually, we were setting that up. He's supposed to be getting back.
Oh, yeah. Well, he did put one out last week, finally. But it was an old one that he finally recovered. So, you know what? Once again, not too much credit for that guy.
All right. Well, he can guest on my podcast. Anyway, I also wanted to touch upon kind of the evolution of the police procedural and how it has changed and how it's changed the way that we view police work at the same time. You know, we touched upon this before about, how real life is not like CSI.
Right.
And how nobody drives around in big black SUVs, and how long DNA tests really take to come back, and how very few police officers really wear sunglasses at night and
Yes.
take them off saying dramatic things.
Yeah, yes. We covered all of that, yes.
But I think that the first example I could think of, at least, of a really good police procedural that tried to show a semblance of reality was probably Dragnet.
I have not watched Dragnet.
I saw the movie that came out back in.
Yeah, that was
it
that was a
87?
comedy. Yeah,
that was a comedy.
That's the only thing I've ever watched. I never saw the news.
I will say about the movie in '87, Dan Aykroyd was spot on for Jack Webb. He did Jack Webb better than Jack Webb did himself. But Dragnet, first of all the cases on Dragnet were supposed to have been taken from real life.
What it was if you had a case you thought would make a good show, you actually turned it in and got some compensation if they chose you.
And the names have been changed to protect the innocent.
Right.
There's another one I actually need to throw in here, but we'll talk about that when it comes up on the timeline. The next one that I want to put in here, Dragnet, though, you had these guys going from place to place, interviewing witnesses, and the witnesses would always be, the classic line on there is "just the facts, ma'am," because the witnesses would be giving them all kinds of hyperbole as they're trying to get these details out of them. So, but you're going from place to place, you're interviewing people, and working at it and just working at it until you finally find the right person on this show, on Dragnet. The next one I put on the list was Barney Miller. Ian, I know you've watched some Barney Miller.
Not really. I'm familiar with it.
I've seen some.
I've caught some, but I know that the guy who played Fish, who originally was in Godfather, one of the reasons he really liked that role is after having been in the first Godfather movie, he was getting pulled over all the time by police. And then after he did Barney Miller, suddenly he wasn't getting pulled over.
Actually, that tends to go toward my point about pop culture affecting reality, too. Because if you see him as a guy in The Godfather, you pull him over. If you see him as a detective on Fish, you give him a pass, or a detective on Barney Miller. There's a quote in the Wikipedia article about Barney Miller, though. They asked Dennis Farina. Let me see who actually did ask the question. Let's see. Jon Favreau's independent film channel talk show Dinner for Five. Dennis Farina, who used to be a Chicago police officer. He asked him what he thought was the most realistic police show, and he said that Barney Miller was it, hands down.
Really?
Yeah. You know what they did on Barney Miller? They sat around the squad room a lot. They drank a lot of coffee. They pulled in the same perps for disorderly behavior multiple times, and they did lots and lots of paperwork.
Yeah, it seems like what I remember from it. So what I caught, I don't remember them ever leaving the office. So it seemed like everything took place.
Yeah, and they did occasionally have some really tense moments in the office. They had hostage situations and things like that. But pretty much everything took place in two locations, which is in the precinct and in Barney Miller's apartment. And there wasn't a whole lot of Barney Miller's apartment.
All right.
I just find it amusing, though, that an actual police officer would say that that was the most realistic police show. And I think it's because all they did all the time was paper and drink really, really crappy coffee.
Okay.
The next one I threw on my list was Hill Street Blues. And Hill Street Blues, you had some really, really gritty stuff that happened. Bad things would happen to the characters, and sometimes you didn't get any satisfaction with the bad things that happened to the characters. You had 2 officers wounded at the end of one season, and at the beginning of the next season, if I recall correctly, they were back and working, but nobody had any idea who had shot them. There was never any satisfaction on that. I don't think it was ever solved. It just happened, and these guys had to get on with their lives after that. I think it was Hill and Renko got shot.
Did they reference back to it at all, or?
Well, yeah, the characters were affected by it.
Okay.
So I don't think they did anything so far as like sending them into career counseling based upon this or anything like that. But they did show that things were affecting characters. The other things that I remember from that show is you had detectives in the precinct. You had this one guy who was trying to make it big and get out of the precinct, but he kept starting on these big projects that were going to make him $1 million, and suddenly it all fell down in his face. So you've got a life outside the precinct, and it's probably not going real well. I think that the next one I want to mention is actually the one I need to put in here, and I think it comes next on the list, which is Cops.
I know I've watched Cops, and of course we have the song that we associate with it.
Want to do?
That's right, Bad Boys.
What are you going to do when they come for you? And of course the Star Wars version of that, Troops, which was
I've seen many parodies.
God, that Troops was so good.
There's no fair amount of parodies
there.
Kimberly?
I'm here.
Okay.
Yeah.
You seen Cops?
I haven't seen Cops. I've seen Troops.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's Cops was always kind of like, if there was really nothing on, what the hell is his name? Not Maury. Who's the one who does the really crappy talk show with people fighting all the time?
Oh, Springer.
Jerry Springer.
Jerry Springer, yeah. Like, if you did not go and watch Jerry Springer and find your life more uplifting than the people who are on that show, then you could go to Cops and really dredge the bottom. So that's what I use daytime TV for.
Excellent.
Feeling better about myself.
That's a good use. And let's toss America's Most Wanted in there also.
Yeah, I mean, I understand your point. All of these things have really changed how we view what happens out there. People kind of have more of an opportunity to kind of think that the criminal behavior is more in one way understandable, although it is so fictionalized at the same time. Even the reality is that they don't have a real idea, but they think they do, and I do think that emerges in other places in society as well.
Well, let's talk about the 2 Cadillacs, Law and Order and CSI. Law and Order is groundbreaking because it's the first show that really touched upon the prosecution process too. And, I was talking with Sam about this, and sometimes on Law and Order, they've got somebody dead to rights, and they take him to the district attorney, and the district attorney can't prosecute it. Or they prosecute it, and it doesn't go the DA's way, and the guy gets off. So not everything has a happy ending on Law and Order. CSI makes us look at how the police look at evidence, even though it's fictionalized, but it makes us think about how the police look at evidence. Probably made some smarter criminals.
The one thing about CSI is that they do have the lady did she start it? Is she the writer that was trained in forensics? So they actually took some effort, or put some effort into being correct when they can. And I think that has inspired other shows to do the same thing. I guess I don't know that for sure, but it does seem that way to me.
I'm inclined to think so. But, hey, my topic.
Exactly, right? It's your bias.
It is one of those pain in the ass things I find as a mediator now in courts and stuff. I mean, people really do think when they go into small claims court that they're going into these police procedurals and stuff like that. And you got to see some of the crap these people bring as evidence and what they really think is going to happen, which is completely unlike the way the judicial system actually works. And, I've had to say to people, I've used the expression, look, this is not court the way you see it on TV. And a lot of people, I think, really have a problem noting that. Just absorbing it because they've seen so much of it. They really think they've got a really good understanding of it. So it's kind of funny in a way.
Since we're talking small claims court, let's talk about Wapner. Let's talk about Judge Judy.
Yeah.
The People's Court. People's Court was kind of groundbreaking for its time, too.
Yeah, I found out that where I do a lot of my mediation, they actually do send some of their cases if the people are willing to. Apparently, is it Judge Judy or the People's Court, or it might be both?
They're both still on. They are both still on.
Yeah.
I kind of like Judge Judy a little bit better because she's feisty.
Mm-hmm.
She's very feisty.
But they're sending real cases to the shows, so.
Well, yeah, the shows are always real cases. And
yeah, I guess so. I just didn't think, I thought that people signed up for them, for their 5 minutes of fame, but they've just filed them with the court the way you're supposed to, and I guess somehow some of them get picked. I don't understand the whole process. I have to check back too, because I don't know that I'm 100% sure I believe what someone told me, but they said it in all seriousness.
Okay. I would actually like to go back and touch on the police procedural thing on a full podcast, except I think we need a police officer guest.
I think we can do that. I think that is manageable, actually. So
Yeah.
So let me ask you guys, when you think of scientists, what's the first word that comes to your mind when you think of scientist?
Educated.
Smart.
Okay.
Ian?
I know where he's going with this, and I actually, at one point, for my own reasons, was trying to write an article on the exact same idea he's about to go to.
Well, excellent, but you're kind of ruining the flow here. What's the first thing that came to your mind? Oh, no mind to come to, so let's move on.
No, actually, because of I knew that what he was saying, sexy was what was popping in my head.
I think the Big Bang Theory has made scientists a little sexy. I think the Big Bang Theory has also made scientists cute. And probably, even though the characters on the show are socially awkward, it makes scientists seem a little more human.
Well, geekiness in general is becoming sexy. I mean,
Yes,
you
it
look
is.
at what's out there. You have the Team Unicorn, who one of the members is married to Seth Green. Who else do you have? But there's a whole lot of geekiness becoming sexy right now. So Big Bang.
Cosplay is big, and cosplay is geekiness.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Of course, cosplay has a light side and a dark side.
Okay, what is
The light side
cosplay?
is cute
Because
Japanese girls.
hold on.
The
Explain
dark side is-
cosplay to me first, because I'm not. I keep hearing this, and I have not looked at what it is.
Cosplay is, well, Ian?
Basically costuming. It's a bit more extreme costuming. A level up from just going out and buying whatever's on the shelf. This is, really getting into. You don't even have to be characters, recognizable characters to say you cosplay. You just have to make a costume, basically. Really crowded.
Okay.
If you spend a year building yourself a fully transforming Starscream costume and take it to a convention and wear it one day, you were a cosplayer.
Okay. So it's not just for the bedroom anymore.
No.
Oh,
In
That's
fact, that could
totally
be
different
a
podcast.
slogan.
What's that?
That's a totally different podcast.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, that's right. That's my weekend
But-
job.
Yeah, so you've got the light side and dark side of cosplay, which is the light side is the sexy girls doing it, and dark side is huge sweaty nerds doing it. But cosplay is definitely becoming a much bigger thing. You can find an awful lot of, you put in a cosplay search on Google, you'll find tons of stuff. I also mentioned the show Numbers in here. Numbers basically featured a mathematician who aided his brother, the FBI agent, in solving cases by using mathematical theory.
Okay. Now, this is all you've done a good job at showing us some very positive ways that this can that these can play off each other, and this kind of snowball effect that makes people more aware of them and maybe makes them more acceptable. Where has this done damage?
Well, Kimberly's article about birthers at the very beginning touches upon this too, even though she didn't initially think that it was part of the podcast. It touches upon this because the birthers thing, that's pop culture. And that is a pop culture negative effect right there.
Well,
You've got people who take some dumb idea into their mind and make it into a belief system.
Well, in one of our past podcasts, we talked about DNA evidence and stuff like that, and how it's not as easy in real life as off the shows make it.
Right. DNA results take months, not 5 minutes.
Right.
By the way, another entry into the sexy scientist thing, Abby on NCIS. Refute me if you can, Brian.
I can't.
I've been watching the British Sherlock, which is an absolutely amazing
brilliant
series.
show.
And there was a character on there who talked about how the scientist, the intellectual, was the new sexy, and did a very good job of being very convincing about it.
Sure.
The geeks are taking over. We really are.
Well, it's not.
Chic.
Oh, but here, yeah, exactly. Geek chic, right? It's
Yeah.
not. It doesn't have the stigma attached to it.
No,
You
it
know,
doesn't.
But many of us were geeks in high school, and it did have that stigma. Now, it wasn't so bad at my high school. I have to admit. But I know other people who probably suffered much more than I did. But I was part of that geeky crowd.
I ran with a crowd of D&D players.
As did I. And, computer nerds and programmers.
Yep.
All
It's
right.
an interesting crowd.
Yeah. Well, the whole subject is interesting, and I think though I'd like to do the opposite show. I think that we should look at where this stuff has gone wrong, where it's made things worse. Because I think
that'd
that
make an interesting show.
I think we're only touching the surface here, because the things that you've given here are very positive, but I suspect that there might even be more negative things that we get from this kind of socialization. Right.
All right.
Okay. Not socialism necessarily.
So it's not going to be the next show, but we could definitely do that a little ways down the line.
Yeah. The next show is going to be our paranormal TV show.
Yep.
And we're welcoming back our guest.
Jason Cordova.
And so we'll be doing that. So.
Another way that pop culture has affected the state of the
Yep.
world, and that could be considered a positive or a negative.
I have some negative issues with it. That's one reason why I think it'll make a good podcast.
Yeah, I think it will too. And
But on the other hand, Jason Cordova would think that it's got positives, where you think it has negative.
I don't know that he does. That'll be an interesting situation.
Yeah.
Does he?
It will be interesting.
Yeah.
It will be interesting to see.
So we'll see. So that'll be fun. The other thing that, if we're done, I have one more thing that I want to mention.
Well, I just added here at the bottom.
Oh,
I don't
did
know
you
if
add
noticed.
something?
Yeah, I just found out it is Banned Book
Oh.
30th anniversary of it. So I encourage everyone to go out, look, find some banned books, some something to celebrate Banned Book Week. But it's definitely been I brought up the whole issue before, so see what you can do to promote literature and promote freedom of speech.
All right. Very good.
All right.
All right.
What were you going to mention, Brian?
Yeah, I want to mention, if anybody listens to Dumbasses podcast, the Dumbass Guided Knowledge and stuff, and the Invisible Sky Masters podcast, one of the things that he's always talking about is helping to give other people a voice. And so he's if anybody wants to do a podcast and you're not sure exactly how to do it, contact him. He's building his his media empire. He doesn't care if he agrees with you or not. He just wants to help give I think mainly skeptics, right? But he doesn't have to agree with you. He's trying to help people and give them a voice. So go check out I think it's the dumbassesguidetoknowledge.com. Anyway, we'll try and put something in the show notes too. But if you're interested, he wants to help give people a voice, and I think this is a great idea. I totally disagree with people who are like, you've got to have a niche. No, you've got to start somewhere. So if you think that you have a voice and that you want to and that you want to try a podcast, there's a good place to help. He'll help you get started. So we'll make sure we get something in the show notes. But I think that what I really like what he's doing, and I want to support it because even though we're not a member of his multimedia empire, he's a friend of ours.
Yes. And no matter what, if you've got something to say, put your voice out there, because everything you've got to say is valuable. Everything anybody's got to say is going to be valuable. Do a podcast. It's not that hard. Write a blog entry. Post on a forum. Anything. Get your words out there.
So, yep. All right. Is there anything else?
I think that's it.
All right. Well, say goodnight, everybody.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Mac, whatever happened to That's Another One in the Can?
They can't follow directions. You said good night. You said to say good night, everybody.
I know, but here's
That's
the thing.
another
is
one
that
in the can.
You used to say that, and you've dropped it.
Yeah, I don't really know why.
All right.
It's another one in the can.
Good night, everybody.
All right. See you guys later.
Thank you for listening to the Amateur Skeptics Podcast. For more information about the Amateur Skeptics, go to amateurskeptics.com. To send us feedback, suggestions, or big flaming insults, feel free to contact us at WTF@amateurskeptics.com. Other contact information can be found on our website.
You can leave a voicemail for the Amateur Skeptics podcast at 720-295-7785. Music for this podcast was provided by OFM. To find out more about OFM, go to myspace.com/OFMHQ. This podcast is released under a Creative Commons, No Derivatives 3.5 license. Thank you for listening to the Amateur Skeptics podcast.
Amateur Skeptics website, Facebook, and podcast album art is provided by and copyright Shadow Knight Digital Portraiture. Larger prints or custom pieces are available upon request.